Last time on Forensic Code, a compliance officer named Elise Caro helped build the case that ended a colleague's career for a fraud he didn't commit. What the room never knew, 9 years earlier, in a different city, a much younger Daniel Voss heard that same woman tell him she was pregnant and didn't think it was worth staying for. She never reached him again, until the day he became her colleague, up for the one promotion that could finally fix everything she'd carried alone. 9 years earlier, Elise was on secondment at a different water authority when she met an engineer named Daniel Voss. 5 months together. Nothing dramatic, just two people who wanted different futures and were honest enough to say so before it curdled into something worse. Elise joined Southbank 7 years ago, the year Toby turned 1. Ryan Keane started the same year, a fellow new hire on her floor. Colleague first, for a long while, before it became something else. Southbank did have a fraternization policy, for the record. It existed mainly so HR could say it existed, right up until someone became inconvenient enough to enforce it against. Neither of them planned on becoming that inconvenient. Daniel didn't join for another 5 years, an external hire, fast-tracked in on his engineering record, only 2 years before his own termination. By then, Elise looked and sounded like a different person. When he asked in his first week if they'd met before, she said no, and neither of them found any reason to doubt it. His arrival unsettled her more than she expected. 5 quiet years at Southbank, and suddenly she was rearranging her schedule to avoid the compliance floor's third meeting room, the one his team used every Thursday. The invoices, the migration, the forged approval codes, none of that was ever the real scheme. The real scheme started the day Daniel walked in, except at first it wasn't a scheme at all, it was just a want. She wanted him gone. 2 years is a long time to sit next to a want without turning it into a plan. By the time his promotion came up, she wasn't improvising anymore. She knew exactly what to do and exactly when to do it. Daniel's mistake wasn't a signature or a login. It was smaller than that, and he made it 9 years before he ever had reason to worry about audits. When the woman he'd been seeing for 5 months told him she was pregnant, he said, more or less, that he hoped it worked out for her. Then he left for a job 3 states away. He never once wondered if he should have left her a number that still worked. At 33, that should have occurred to him. It didn't, and that's the part he'll eventually have to sit with. It is, in hindsight, a genuinely inexpensive mistake to make. It cost him nothing at the time. 9 years later, it cost him a promotion, a reputation, and a regulatory file he will spend years failing to correct. One junior auditor did flag something odd about Meridian's registration date 3 weeks into the review. Elise walked him through the migration logs herself, patient and thorough. He apologized, actually apologized, for wasting her time. She told him it was a good catch. It wasn't a catch at all. It was exactly what she'd built the file to survive. It's worth noting, nobody else even glanced twice. Why would they? The paperwork was flawless, the timing was perfect, and the woman running point on the review was, on paper, the most trustworthy person in the building. By the time the termination meeting was scheduled, there was nothing left to investigate, only paperwork to sign. Daniel asked, one more time, if anyone in the room had ever worked with him closely enough to vouch for his character. Elise said she'd reviewed his file thoroughly. She had, just not the way he thought. There's a version of due diligence that looks identical from the outside whether you're protecting someone or ending them. Daniel signed where he was told to sign, packed a single banker's box, and left the building at 4:40 that afternoon without once looking back at the compliance officer who'd walked him out. He signed the exit paperwork 40 minutes later, beside a compliance sign-off from an officer whose name meant nothing to him anymore. 9 years earlier, that name had meant something. He had simply stopped thinking about it long before it ever stopped thinking about him. That was the signature moment, not a confession, just a man signing away his career next to a name he'd already forgotten how to feel anything about. Ryan Keane became regional director 11 weeks later. He came over that night, lighter than she'd seen him in over a year, already talking mortgage brokers and start dates, and said, almost as an afterthought, "Funny how things work out." He had no idea there was a question underneath his own sentence. She poured the wine. She did not answer it. Nobody in that celebration knew there was anything to know. That was, by design, the entire point. 6 months after that, Elise and Ryan got married. South Bank's fraternization policy doesn't bend for spouses. They both resigned within the same fortnight and left the country before the ink on the marriage certificate was properly dry. It was the same junior auditor, 3 years wiser, and finally in a position to ask questions nobody had let him ask before, who found what Meridian Grid Solutions actually was. By then, Elise Caro was already gone. South Bank couldn't file charges, not because the evidence wasn't there, because nobody could find her to charge. 9 years earlier, Daniel had been the one who disappeared, gone with no working number. Now South Bank had exactly the same problem, except this time, disappearing meant nobody could ever hold her to account for what she'd done. By then, Daniel wasn't in a position to be recalled anyway. 18 months of unemployment, humiliation, and a regulatory fight he couldn't win had already put him in hospital with a heart attack at 42. The photo that broke it open wasn't recent. It was her South Bank hire photo, 11 years old by the time anyone published it, taken only 2 years after she and Daniel had actually parted ways, years before South Bank ever changed how she looked, moved, dressed. It was closer to his memory than she'd ever let herself be in person. The number he never left her. The pregnancy he never followed up on. He would spend whatever health he had left carrying the specific, private knowledge that revenge, in his case, had a name, a face, and 9 years of patience. Ryan never learned any of it. He knew Toby had a father who'd left before Toby was born. He never learned the father's name, or that the man he'd once worked alongside at South Bank was the same one. The system finally got her name right. It just couldn't get her address. At Forensic Code, we remember anyway.